Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gen Friends. I am Cheri Hudson-Passy from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and I want to welcome you to the show. I am so excited for our guests that we have tonight. We have Bernice Bennett that's here with us tonight, and Bernice has her Blogspot radio show. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that for a minute, Bernice?
Oh, yes, it's 8 years, and I broadcast every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I have authors, historians, genealogists, speakers, ordinary people coming on and just sharing with us.
It's a great show. We
Thank you.
appreciate you being here, and the archive ladies in the house. Hi, Melissa. It's good to have you
Hi,
here.
Sherry.
Why don't you just
Great to be here.
tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Oh, well, I am up to working in the local county archives where I work, and we are actually expanding our archives. So it's been moving day for several weeks,
Oh, wow.
but it's going great. Expanding our archives so that we have a much better place for our researchers to research, more room for records. And so, yeah, and I've been continue to writing, speaking, lecturing, all those good things, and encouraging people to do research in those archives. I know we can want to find everything online, and a lot is online, but we need to reach out to all those archives that are just holding all those records.
That is so true. Well, I'm glad you joined us in the midst of all your moving. I'm glad that you've had time to come and join us tonight. We are going to talk about two shows. We are going to talk about Finding Your Roots. It's episode 8, and it was called Hard Times. And we're also going to talk about day 3 of Relative Race. We're going to get started with Finding Your Roots and the revelations that Michael Moore found out. We'll get started with that about his family. They started out with his paternal line, and they showed a photo of his father who had served in World War II, and then started talking about, how his father was just anti-war, once he came back. And of course, everybody knows, Michael Moore's history and his thoughts and his political views. And what was interesting is they were able to go back to his third great grandfather, and his name was Henry Hoover. And they found out something really cool and interesting about his religious affiliation. And that was that he was a Quaker. And I thought that was really interesting. And he was shocked. He had never heard, of any Quakers in his background. But they discovered that this third great grandfather of his was asked. Well, I guess they didn't really ask them. He was told that he had to join the militia for the War of 1812. Yeah, and being a member of the Quakers, he said no. He said no. What I thought was interesting, Melissa, is that there was a memoir that they found that he had written. And it didn't look like, and it looked like it had been published in a book. It didn't look like it was like an original kind of document thing. It looked like it had been published in a book because they're highlighting different things that he said. And I thought, man, I wish one of my ancestors had written a memoir. It was posted somewhere, talks about their feelings. And
I couldn't tell though if that book was like a conglomeration of people's stories or if it was just
right.
his. I don't know that
No,
they even said, but yeah, no, it was fantastic to see that with Michael Moore. A lot of people probably, there's not very many people that don't know Michael Moore, but I don't particularly care for Michael Moore. But I'm telling you, he really grabbed my heart when I watched him in the show because, I think as genealogists and especially at the professional levels that we watch these shows and we watch these famous people and their reactions and stuff. And I absolutely believe he was genuine and authentic. He
I agree.
truly felt what they were telling him, and especially it followed some of his beliefs and his really, truly soulful thoughts. Because, he even said at one time, he said that it was touching his soul.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did.
And
he did.
And his pure reaction was very, very refreshing, and I loved it. I actually did.
I agree 100% with what you're saying. He even said he feels like he was having another birthday. because he
Mm-hmm.
was just connecting with who he was and all these things that he didn't know before. I thought that was fabulous.
I don't know if I don't know that I've ever had this reaction, but it was almost like his ancestors were confirming his convictions
Yeah. Yeah, and we've
in,
seen this
in
a
an
we've
odd
seen this
way.
a lot, don't we? We've seen as people go back and find things about their ancestors, they've got the same hobbies or talents or whatever it may be, and in
Mm-hmm.
this case, it was a belief system. And I just think it's gotta be overwhelming to have this presented to you when you know nothing and this is presented to you and you see, wow, maybe this is where I get this from. They even, I believe they even had a picture. Didn't they have a picture of him? I mean, he was able to see a lot of different things about this ancestor. And interestingly enough, too, this particular man ended up he chose a different sect of the Quakers. There was a schism
Mm-hmm.
in and he chose a different sect, and they kicked him out and they disowned him, and he ended up going to the Methodist Church. And so, in part of his memoirs, he was talking about how much that hurt his soul that all this had happened to him. And he was just trying to serve his God, is how he felt. And then these things happened to him. He lived to be 86 years old. So, he had a
Mm-hmm.
good life,
Yeah.
but that was difficult for him. And then, of course, they went to his maternal line, and he just felt like, I'm Irish. It's going to be all Irish. Except for the one ancestor that they found that came over and was in Massachusetts in the early 1600s from England. So
Yep.
he was actually Scottish. He was actually Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he came, they found a ship's manifest, and he came over with 300 other Scots. And they came because of the Civil War in England, and they had been captured, and they were actually prisoners. The text actually called them slaves, and
Mm-hmm.
and Henry Louis Gates was saying, you don't find that very often, that wording, written for 300 white men coming, over to the United States. And so he found that very interesting that the word slaves was written in this document. But they came and they were actually sold to workhouses in the United States. The difference is they were able to work their way out. They were able to work their way out
Exactly. Yes.
become free. Um, and he did. He ended up, but the sad tragedy of the tale was then he ended up being killed by Native Americans. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought he had a
Yeah.
very interesting take on that too. He says, they came over and took their land. What did they expect? So I thought that was an interesting take that he had on that. But then he did say he was, like you said, he was very touched by this whole process of
he, he really was.
turning the page,
Not
and
only was he
yeah,
very touched, but he actually showed it on
yes,
camera.
yes,
I feel like sometimes some of the celebrities hold back a little bit, maybe. But,
hmm
and I also like the feeling, and I don't know why, but I love it when they come on, even with us, regular old people doing genealogy, when we have our stories, that we just know we're this or we know this, and it's proven wrong or proven not
yes,
100% right.
yes, yes.
I really like it when the research does that,
hmm
because it's just, the truth of the records
The
and the
truth of the
truth of
records.
actually how it was. Yeah.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
great
his
because I think they like that, because I've seen
mhm.
several of these now where they are like, oh, really? And they just, they like the twist and the turns. So,
Exactly.
like
Well,
we all do.
like we all do. Exactly. We've all got those twists and turns. The second one was Chloe 70, and she was talking about her paternal roots, and she figured that they were French. And she'd always been told that they were French. And she was talking about how she's got, she'll go to Quebec or has friends that go to Quebec, and they'll say, you must be related to everybody in this town because there's so many people with your surname here. But she didn't know, she really didn't know anything, and they were able to find the first thing they were able to find for her was naturalization records from Canada to the United States. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I know that this happens, but usually when we see those, it's Europe or something like that. I'm thinking, oh, that's right. If you came from Canada to here, it's the same thing. You're gonna have to have that paperwork. Um, so they saw that connection with Canada and then went back into Canadian records, and they were able to go back quite far. They ended up going to, they found out that she had I think it was an eighth great grandparent set that they found. And there were, turns out that the man was like 31 years old. His name was Michelle. And Marguerite, the wife, was 14 when they got married. And at first it was like
Yes.
the shocking, oh my gosh, how could that possibly happen? And then they started doing some history of Canada, which is really great, how they'll put things into perspective for people. So,
Yes.
and that's what we need to do with our own research. We need to look at the history and put things into perspective. At that time, they said there's like 6 men to 1 woman in Canada, in that area of Canada.
It reminded me a lot of the stories, and if any of us have ancestors that were out west,
As mail order brides. And
yes, yes, the
Exactly.
beginnings of the old west
Yeah.
and out west,
Yeah.
and how, the women,
They
they
could.
had more men than women. It kind of reminded me of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So what the King of France did was he said, okay, if anybody would like to go to Canada and, we'll send you over there. And the girls would sign up and they would, get paid to go. And it wasn't like they just kind of went and they had to marry, the first person they met. They actually they said, in little dormitory kind of things. And the men would come to them and they would be able to interview the men. How do you make your money? Where do you live? All these kind of questions. So it wasn't a forced kind of thing. It sounds like they had some choice into who they married. So for some reason, she chose this 31-year-old man, and they got married. And they were called the Daughters of the King. Now, I know there's a French term, but
Mhm.
I don't speak French. I know I would butcher it. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I tried to get into, which is impossible, to get into the head of the women who did that, to make that decision to go. I mean, you
And
don't
at
know what
14?
you're going into.
Yeah.
Well, that one is, with that one, I try to think that, you know what, 14 then is not 14
Oh,
now.
and that's so true.
14 then is so much older.
Oh,
And
I agree
so
with you. I
that
agree
part
with you.
doesn't bother me as much as them leaving their home country to who knows where
I'm thinking
and
that
what's
had
going to
to
happen
be,
to them.
yeah, desperation, poverty. That's what I'm thinking it had to have been.
Yeah.
No way out. This was a way out of the lifestyle
Yeah.
that I really think that's what it was. They ended up having 6 children together, and then they said 2 months to the day of when he died, she remarried, and then she went on to have 8 more children. And this is why everybody in Quebec is related to her, because there was these
Yes.
children, all these children, and then they had children. So I thought that was pretty
Mhm.
funny. That was a
Yeah.
reason. That was quite the story and being part of. That deep history of Canada. I think that was pretty fun for her to learn.
Mhm.
The last star that they did was Laura Linney, and they began on her mother's side. Her mother had had a very hard life. Her father had died when she was young, and her mom had to raise the children. She did laundry. She did all sorts of things to help raise the children. But as they started going back, as we find in a lot of families, things just kind of run through the family. And this is what was happening on her mother's side. There was generation after generation of women whose husbands either died or left them. In one case, she had
Mhm.
I think it was her grandmother or great grandmother who was listed as a widow when in fact
A widow.
the husband was living someplace else with another family, which happened a lot. They didn't
Mhm.
want to put that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that is something that I teach my genealogy
Yes.
students. When you see in a census and the woman is listed as widowed, I always tell them, don't believe it.
Yeah. Try to
you
find
know,
that husband.
you may find that it's true, but don't believe
Mhm.
it because
I've
it's
Yeah.
happened to me with
Me
my
too.
research. And
Me too.
the very first one I found, from then on, I don't believe widowed. I don't until I can prove it, because it was such a stain to be divorced that they
Exactly.
would much rather say they were widowed.
Well, and a lot of them never were officially divorced anyway. It's just the man just took off and then
Mhm.
remarried because who was gonna do anything about it, They could just leave. So,
Mhm.
anyway, so it was generation of this happening, and it was just kind of sad, you know. It was just one generation after another, and that happens sometimes, and we see that in families that the same kind of things like this happen over and over again. Um, they did find a real kind of funny kind of story on her paternal line, and that was she had an ancestor who was sent to Virginia as a convict because he had admitted in the trial was in 1766 and he in England, and he admitted to having stolen property. He was taking the property. People would steal it, and then, he was
Mm-hmm.
taking the property. And so he had been in possession of stolen property. He admitted it. And so they sent them to Virginia. And I think a lot of people don't realize that happened. We all hear the stories about the convicts going to Australia, but they sent
Mm-hmm.
them to America as well. And a
I
lot of
did.
us probably have an ancestor that came over here because, they sent them over here to populate. So,
Well, the thing with Laura Linney's story and everything that she found out was just as much as I could feel Michael Moore and what he felt. I could really, it was very palpable, her, what she was learning. And immediately you could see her face, her feet, everything just like, yep, okay, yep, that's how my family's been. That's how it's been. That's how it, she just, it
right.
was just very, she just
Yeah.
knew that was very,
Yeah.
she's very comfortable in it. As sad as it was, she was very comfortable in it. Like, yep, that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
my family kind of
That's
thing,
yeah.
and
That was our lot in life for so long. Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I could
Yeah.
feel that as much as I could feel Michael Moore and his feelings, And
Exactly.
I love that when that comes through the television,
Mhm.
because sometimes you don't get that with these
Yeah.
celebrities.
It's true.
You just
Sometimes you
don't. And
wonder,
so
sometimes you do wonder, if they were just holding everything in, or if it sometimes maybe it's just hard to process.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that I like that because it makes, I don't know, and for me it makes the story better, and it makes me, even though I've been doing this as long as I've been doing it, it makes me, inspires me to
Well,
do more and
sure.
to search more and to find more. You know.
Exactly, exactly. It's always fun to watch other people discover, and I think that's
Hmm.
why all of us, we do what we do. That's why we like to teach people how to do what we do, because we love to see those discoveries in people and see the excitement. And that's what we're seeing in most cases on the show, is they're getting their big book of all those people, and I'm always thinking, I wonder what other stories just didn't make the cutting room, or on the cutting room floor, and didn't make it, because I remember when Cece was on, she was talking about, there is so much, but they're looking for what would make good TV. And she said that some people that you think are going to be just make really good TV, that their reactions, because of, who they are and what everybody knows their personality is,
Hmm.
I think it's going to make really good TV. And she said they're just flat the whole time. And those people who are just, oh, I don't know if this is going to work, they're the ones that are seeing joy in it. And so she says they just never know. They never know, from star to star, from celebrity to celebrity, what's going to make good TV. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to have to be the producer on that and have to decide, what
No.
story is going to be, what story is going to touch them and touch the viewers, because you've got to find a story that touches the viewers as well as the celebrity, and
Am I,
that's got to
am
be
I
hard.
mistaken? Am I mistaken, or was in this episode they didn't show any DNA
They
results?
didn't. There was no DNA
I
results in
didn't
this
think they
one.
did. They did.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Nope.
I didn't think they did. I
No.
wonder why. Although I know we talked to Cece about this stuff, but I wondered I wondered why they didn't have the DNA on
Perhaps
those.
there was just nothing more to tell with the DNA. Maybe they did it, but it just all was pretty
Maybe.
much, it was
Yeah.
anticlimactic. So,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have really, it was like
Maybe the documents and the stories were like you were talking about the
enough.
cutting room floor. Maybe the documents and the stories was more of the story than the DNA,
Than
and
the
so
DNA.
that's probably
It's
why. Yeah.
very possible, very possible. Well, I know that there's
Great
2 more
episode
episodes.
though.
Yeah, it was a good episode, and there's 2 more in this season, but they're not going to be on for a few more weeks. So we will cover those when they come on, and now we're gonna switch our time over and talk a little bit about Relative Race. Relative Race season 5. day 3. And I know Bernice is a big Relative Race fan, and she's going to help me out with this. And Melissa, just chime in anytime you want. We'd love to hear your thoughts. This is what we're talking about, Relative Race. And of course, I always have to wear my Relative Race bands, as we get started. So, as we get started in this day 3, we're still seeing the teams with their families, and I'm finding I like that because it seems like in past seasons it was just they get the phone call and they just leave, but they're showing more of that morning. They're with their relatives and what's going on and how the relatives are maybe helping them look at maps. So this is where you are to help you get out, and they're talking. And Team Blue was talking to Demetrius's cousin and telling him that they were going to help him through this. They were going to help him find his birth father. And I just thought that was wonderful that, Demetrius, that's what he's looking for, but he wants to help his cousin as well. And he didn't leave him with, well, I'm going on my journey and I'm going to find hopefully my information and we'll see you later, cuz they were committed to helping him as well. And I loved that. Maria and Elizabeth were leaving Liz's cousin, Shay, and Shay was saying, "Hey, make sure you text me. You've got my number. Let's keep in touch." And they were all doing that as the green team as they left, that big massive family they went to. They were all still talking and loving on each other, and I just thought that was just wonderful. And they're showing us those family connections. So they get their little phone call from Dan, and it's time to move on, and they jump in their cars and they start to go. And Black team cracks me up because what do? They get on their phones and they start texting.
Talking.
Trash texting on their phones. At first they were sitting out nice little have a good day today. Hope everything goes well for you. And they're doing it out of fun because they switch from the lovey-dovey stuff to Team Green. Hope you have fun with your driver today. You should have gotten your driver's license. Melissa, this team has to have a driver because they don't have driver's licenses, these 2 boys.
Okay.
So one of them, the very first day, met their birth father, and he is their driver. So they are going to spend this 10 days with one of the boys' birth father. So that's just been an incredible thing. So they're trash talking. If you had a driver, blah blah blah, have fun. It's not fair. La 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 la. And then they told Team Red. They said your ticket home is in the dunking machine. Right, the first day when they did the dunking, they said your ticket home is in at the bottom of that dunking machine. So they're just playing with each other and having a really good time. They're connecting and bonding and loving each other. They're just having a just fun time with each other. So you're on the road for a couple hours. You want to do something fun. So that's what they were doing.
Yeah. Actually, I like the interaction that showing between the team members. They are staying in touch, although it's competition. They seem to express a great deal of joy that they basically have each other too. Even though they're in different cars and they're on a different journey, they still are showing that respect and support of each other.
Because there's only a small group of people that are going to understand what they're going through.
Right.
And for them during this 10 days, it's these other teams. These other teams understand completely, what it's like to jump in a car and have to try to get to a certain point, have to do a challenge. Who are we going to meet? All those emotions. They're the ones that can share that, unlike anybody else can. And once they're done, they can then bond with other teams from other seasons. And I'm finding that that's happening too. And I think that's really cool that they're becoming this little club of Relative Race teams, that they can love and support each other. So I think that's great. Let's talk for a few minutes about the challenge. Oh my gosh, Bernice, tell us about the challenge, the smell and tell.
Yes, first of all, this challenge required that they could not see. So the only thing that they could do is smell. They could put the skin against,
They were tasting too and licking.
So they had a little bit of everything hanging on, looked like a clothesline. And they had a huge pineapple, a baby diaper, a dog bone.
They had
Look at that.
garlic, they
Yeah,
had looked
garlic,
like a donut, and they just had to
baseball,
smell it and call out what they thought it was,
right.
and they did. They got to the point where there was a rubber boot. They were, like, chewing, gnawing on things. "Oh, I think this
No,
is"
but that baby diaper, I mean, can you imagine
ugh,
trying to figure out what it was? And
yeah,
some people say, oh, is that baby powder? And, I don't know
yeah.
how they figured out it was a diaper.
I don't either. Especially those boys. When's the last time they'd ever smelled a diaper? How did they how did they figure out it was a diaper? What grossed me out was the dog bone. It was humongous. And like they were saying, it feels kind of hairy, whatever this thing is, it's
Ew.
huge. It must have been a dog bone for like a Great Dane. The thing was huge. And they were gnawing on it. A couple of the teens were licking it because they were trying so hard to figure out what it was. And oh, that was disgusting, but at the
That
same
was.
time, I'm thinking, fabulous game for a family reunion. All these games,
Oh, I would love whoever is
oh,
coming up with these
I know it
games. They're good.
they're good, and I keep saying, "Why don't you put a book out, a family reunion game book, based on relative race challenges?" It would
Mhm.
sell. It'd be a big hit
It
because
was.
we
It
all need
was.
good games. We all need good games for our family reunions.
Mhm.
Um, Now they're getting better with their selfies. Blue team had a little bit of an issue with their selfie this time, but they seem to be getting better. Maybe they're taking advice that we've given them through the years, and we've said you need to
Mhm.
practice. You're not going to have your regular phone. You need to learn to do a selfie on your flip phone if you're going to be on relative race. So they haven't had as many issues this year. It doesn't seem, but blue team had a little bit of a problem. Green team didn't have a problem with their selfie. They had a problem with Bishop, the driver. So they come back, they take their selfie, they run back to the car. The driver, Bishop, Keith's dad, is nowhere around, and they're looking for him. We're being timed. Where is he? And he was off eating a banana. So they're like, stay in the car. You can't walk away from the car. So they finally get him back in the car. But I still think they're at a disadvantage because he can't go anywhere. He can't drive. He can't make a turn unless they tell him to. So people keep saying, oh, they've got a driver, they've lucked out. I think it's been harder for them than they even thought it was going to be. But Bishop said, he says, you know what? I am having the time. This is the best week of my life. This is so fun to be able to bond with these boys. So, he might be having a good time, but don't walk off and eat a banana. You're being timed. So I know that was frustrating for him. So they're finally getting into their towns, and also Demetrius is still using his technique because it was raining again. So his technique, so he doesn't hydroplane, is he gets right behind the semis, and he just drives right behind the semis so that the water's off the road and he can just follow them. So I thought that's really funny. That's his secret weapon. He says he uses when it's raining. Um, they get to their towns and they are finding the addresses. Some are having a little bit more issue than others trying to get to their relative. Blue team shows up and they meet. Everybody's expecting it's always going to be somebody from Demetrius because he's looking for his father, but it's not. It's his wife, Shanta's cousin on her dad's side. And so she's thrilled because she's like, I'm meeting people. I'm meeting cousins. I thought it was just going to be all him. So, Bernice, do you want to talk about what the cousin brought out and showed him?
So this cousin brought out this wonderful family tree. I mean, it covered the entire table. I mean, it was just that long. And he could explain just how they were related to each other by going through this huge family tree, which was just a wonderful experience.
It
And it
was.
was great to see. I wonder who
Yeah,
made up that
I know, the
tree.
same thing, and he also had her on there and their son, so
That's right.
he had added that generation, and so I think that really touched her heart that he had gone ahead and added her on that, and they have a son, so he had added that too, so that was great. That was a great, time for them and a bonding time for her to learn a little bit more about her family, so that made me happy that they were able to meet somebody for her. Um, Team Black was kind of an amazing meeting. They met cousins who also are very musical, and we've seen in the last couple of days that the girls are musical themselves. And so they were able to meet this cousin. And Bernice, again, if you want to tell us about what they got to do with these cousins.
Right. Well, they met three cousins, mother and her two sons, and they were all musicians, and they went to a studio. And in that studio, they had an opportunity to sing this beautiful song. You would not believe they had not practiced How Great Thou Art.
It was so
And
beautiful.
they harmonized. It was just beautiful. It was as if they had practiced a long time.
Exactly. It was gorgeous. And then the twins, the girls, sang a song that they had written for their father.
Right.
That that was beautiful. And the whole and their emotions about not knowing who he is and everything that entails. And my whole thought while they were singing that was, please, please let them meet him and let them sing that song to him.
Oh, yes, yes. Hmm.
We would all be, I mean, that would be a 3 tissue night, wouldn't it? 3 box of tissue night if
Oh,
they would do
yes,
that.
definitely.
Oh my gosh. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that needs to happen, and we need to see it. We need to see it. So, it was beautiful, and he needs to see it. He needs to feel those emotions as well. Team Green pulls up and they meet. Remember, Team Green, both of the boys have different fathers, but they've got the same mom, and she died a day before Mother's Day. And one of the boys was like really about 9, and the other one was older, but one of them ended up in foster care his whole life and just really was abused and was homeless for a while. So they walk in and they meet their mother's brother. They didn't even know that their mother had a brother. And he said to them, "They're gonna know what it's like to have family now." Oh.
And he remembered, he could say, he remembered when they were little,
Mhm. And he was
but
showing them pictures on his phone of her,
of her, yes,
telling
yes.
them stories of her.
Hmm.
Yeah, things that they just had never heard and didn't know, and that was very touching, and you could just see, they're very interesting, these 2 boys. One of them is very outgoing, and the other one is kinda quiet and laid back, and so it's kinda interesting to watch their reactions as they're so different in their reactions as they meet people along the way. It's really fun to see that, but what a connection that was to be able to be that close, that just that one step away, from their mom, and to be able to learn more about her and hear stories about her life that they didn't know. That's precious. It's gotta be so precious to them. Well, I've kept Team Red till the end. You wanna I don't know. Do you wanna take that one over?
This was a tissue. This
This
was one.
This was the whole box. You're already
The
kinda tearing
whole
up, you're
box.
already pulling some out, you're happy for all the teams. Then Team Red pulls up. Mm,
Mm,
mm, mm.
mm, mm. Mama showed up.
Oh gosh, Maria's mom. Maria's mom is there. Remember these 2 girls, Maria and Liz, they are sisters through adoption, and they both are on what they're calling a gratitude tour. This is their gratitude tour. Their purpose is they want to find information about their birth families, and they want to say thank you for the decisions that were made to give them the lives that they've had. And so Maria sees this woman, and like Bernice says, she says, "Hi, Maria, I'm your mom." Oh, oh, we're like, "Oh my gosh, she's already met her mom already. We're only on day 3. What else is gonna happen in this show? We're
I
only on day
know, I'm
3."
wondering about that because
Yes.
her mother took the time to explain to her just the
Yes.
circumstances
Yes.
of her life as a young woman,
Mhm.
and also that she did spend a little time with her, but she had to make that decision. And it
Right.
was a decision out of love.
Exactly.
And she then turned around and shared with her the picture of her father.
And you could just see it. You could see, oh, the dad and the mom. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. These are your biological parents. Absolutely. And then because this is the gratitude tour, she tells her thank you. Thank you. The decision that you made gave me the life that I have now. And that was just a touchy moment. You could tell that it made the birth mom just feel better about the decision that she'd made. And she said, when I held you, before I gave you up, I prayed over you. And I prayed that you would bring joy to the family that you go to. And you can tell Maria does. She's just that kind of person. You can tell that she brings joy to people. But she was sad because she says, but you didn't have what you needed. You didn't have the comfort. You didn't have people backing you up. And so she felt bad, that foundation. Her birth mother didn't have it. So she felt really bad for her. But hopefully this is going to be a relationship that can continue and they can still see each other. And, she was like, I have a mom and dad and I have siblings whom I love. And it's because of the decision that you made.
Right.
And you gave me the best life ever. And so that's got to be comforting to a birth mom to hear that from your child. It's got to be comforting to know that they had a good life. So tears, joy, love, and of course, Liz is there just crying and just so happy for her sister that this is happening. So it was a very emotional show again. Everyone, all three so far have just been boom, one person after another they're getting to meet. And it's just been a joy to watch. Then again, at the end, you got to have that Skype call and they got to have the results because somebody's going to come in with the slowest time. And but I love, love, love that they do spend that few minutes at that Skype call. And I wonder how long that Skype call really lasts. I wonder if there's a lot going on and they're very emotional and they want to talk, if it lasts longer or if it's just kind of short, like what we see. But they each got to introduce to the other teams who they found. And when Maria said, I want to introduce you to my mom, did you notice all the other teams' faces? They were just like,
Yes.
what? Wow.
Mhm.
And tears, And Marcus from Green Team says, you know what? It's not even about the competition now. The competition's out the window. This is about family. I mean, touch that young man. It was somebody else finding a birth parent, but he was so touched. He was like, oh, forget the competition. This is all about family. This is all about family. So, yeah, and Dan is always touched and he's always tearing up and he's just always, oh my gosh, how did that make you feel? And then he's crying and then of course that makes everybody else start crying again. So it's like, Dan, quit crying. So we're trying to get it together here because we're trying to be mad at you because you're getting ready to give somebody a strike. But we can't because he's Dan and he's all emotional. So uh Team Green comes in first place. Good for the boys. Yay, because I was kind of worried with Bishop eating the banana that maybe he cost them some time. So they came in first place, and then they had a choice between they could either have a day 10 benefit, or the other choice was they could have a benefit with the challenge the next day. I'm wondering if that would have meant they didn't have to do the challenge, or they got extra time for the challenge. Would have been interesting to see, but they chose the day 10 benefit, which, Bernice, I'm telling you, what the heck is the day 10 benefit? It's a
Yeah.
locked box. What's in it?
But there's something in that box. You
There
can
is.
hear it. Yeah.
There is. And I'm thinking either kind of coins that they're supposed to collect,
Yeah.
puzzle pieces, game pieces, something that they have to
Mhm.
have are in that box, but it's locked. And it's so funny because all the teams, all three that have gotten that day 10 benefit, because they've all chosen the day 10 benefit so far, are like, a locked box? What the heck am I supposed to do with a locked box? But we'll know on day 10. We'll know on day 10, and they'll be glad that they have it because it always works out that way. So then red team came in second, and the blue team comes in third, and unfortunately, Team Black came in last place and they got their second strike. So I'm worried about them because I really want them to find information about their dad. I know that if they end up with the third strike and they end up having to go home, that they will get everything. They have the choice. They can go and continue the journey and meet these people. They don't have to go straight home. But we just won't see it on camera. And I want to see it. I want to see it on camera who they meet because we'll be left in the dark. We won't know. Did they find their dad? Did they get any more information? I don't want that to happen. But I always like how Dan always says, you know what? Don't get upset. Tomorrow's another day. You can make it up. And he just says, and relative race rolls on. And then we all sit there going, oh, we've got another week to wait. So another fabulous, fabulous episode of Relative Race. Another one got, keeping us guessing about what day 10 is going to be all about. Another one wondering, who are they going to meet on day 4? Is Demetrius going to find his dad? Is, Liz going to find her mom and all those siblings? It's like, this drama, this soap opera. As the world turns, what's going to happen? On day 4, are the boys going to, meet even more people on their mom's side? Or, they found one of their dads on one of the shows. They know where he is, but is he going to show up on one of these episodes and is he going to be there? So each of the teams has somebody really important that they want to find. And so we don't want any of them going home early. We want to see that. And we want to see them, meet them on camera so that we can cry. And we can hear the song Face to Face. Like I said, they've got a new theme song, but they are still playing Face to Face. And they even start the music up for Face to Face and I'm crying. So I lose it. I'm trying to live tweet during the show and I'm like, I can't even spell, people. Just ignore this. I'm tearing up and I think I said this, but if I misspelled it, you're just going to have to, cut me some slack here. And we're all tearing up watching it. So, another great episode of both shows. We learned a lot about records and history, and we were touched by people finding their relatives and bonding and families coming together and accepting people that they didn't know existed and welcoming them and showing them what family is all about. So do either one of you have anything else you'd like to say about either of these episodes before we end? Anybody?
No, it was just an enjoyable show as the first two, and I'm really looking forward to day 4.
Me too. How about you, Melissa? Anything about finding your roots? Or anything
I
else
would
that
just
you would
say,
like to say?
yeah, I would just say that, that I know that hopefully people are watching us talk about it, and I hope that they watch these shows and that they get encouraged to not only maybe start their research, or maybe if they're hitting a brick wall or they're stagnant or whatever it is they're facing in their own research, that it encourages them to keep going, because
absolutely.
we all have been there, and I know on some of these shows it looks really easy, and it's really not easy sometimes, but just keep going, and just keep plugging along, because you're
plug
going
along
to
and
find those answers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, these shows too can just, you could, maybe you've got a brick wall and you're feeling a little down, can kind of give
Mm-hmm.
you that encouragement to keep going. I can do this. I
Yes.
can do this. Watch and see what records they're looking for, especially in shows like Finding Your Roots.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they researching? What are they doing? If you're looking for family, think about these shows, living relatives that you haven't met. Maybe this show can encourage you to get started and to start looking, maybe take a DNA test and see if you can't find it and connect with family members that are, out there somewhere that you don't know where they are. So there's a lot of that encouragement in these shows and excitement and just ways to find your family if you work hard enough to do it and get other help too. There's always people that are around you in your communities that can help you as well. Look into your local societies and your go to your archives and talk to the people there. Bond with other people that are doing genealogy, and see if they can help you research your family as well. So With that, I thank you ladies so very much for being with me tonight. It's always so much fun to discuss these shows with you. I love it. I love it. And on that note, we will say goodbye and we will see you next time on Gen Friends. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.